of the Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Second item on our agenda is the hearing of residents. Emily, can you check that? I don't see Tiffany here. Thank you. All right, we have a couple of people signed up to speak this evening. When you call your name, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and tell us what you have to say. First person that signed up is Breezy Webb.
Thanks.
There we go.
Okay, hear me better?
Yeah.
Okay, so we were just informed of this meeting, so forgive me for being illy prepared. I just briefly read over the agenda here, but my main concern is bullet C on here. Y'all are going to be building a planned development on 64 acres off of Engle Road and the private street, Big John Lane. So that is where I reside, is Big John Lane. I have 3 daughters, and for the longest time we've enjoyed the countryside. We know that developments are going to come and people are going to come along with those. My main thing, though, is the sex offenders that come along with that, the crime that come along with that. The crime rate is going to move higher, obviously, and then everything that a development brings in with it. We've lived out there on the 13 acres. We own 13 acres out there. We've lived out there for the past 4 years. As it is, it's pretty much just us left at this point. We've survived out there on our own. EMS, police officers, fire departments can't even get to us because the roads are so rural. Now we're talking about moving a development in, moving schools in, moving buses in, moving tons of cars, tons of people. Yeah, she's got something to say about it. Sorry. She's not in agreement with it either. But that's my main concern, and especially with my children being girls. They're used to running on the land. They're used to doing as they please. They know to watch out for snakes and coyotes. That's their predators out there. But now we're moving in new predators to the area. I know I've heard a school is going to be going up out there, so hopefully not too many sex offenders will be living out there because the school area, they have to live within a certain mileage of the school or feet of the school. But I'm really, really not in agreement with the development going up out there. It's a coin toss for us because along with that, it'll bring water. We have no running water out there. We haul water into our house. We've put in a well, spent $17,000 on a well, and the well's not good. So now we have to haul water out there for a family of 5. We're okay with those living arrangements, but we know if a development comes out there, water mains come near us. We could hook into a water main. EMS, fire department, and police can come out there if we need them. The thing is that we really don't need the police because there's no crime out there. It's us out there. EMS, I don't ever want to say we won't need them, but we haven't arose to need them, nor a fire department. But that's my main thing. We did come from the city. We came from San Antonio, so we do know both lifestyles. We loved San Antonio, but obviously we moved to the country because we started a family. We wanted our children to experience country life and get out of everything that a city would bring them. So that's pretty much my viewpoint on it at the time with the limited research that I was able to do. Okay? Thank y'all.
Thank you. Next person signed up to speak is Andreas Gonzalez.
Good afternoon, or good evening now. My name is Andres Gonzalez, and I also reside at 360 Big John Lane. I know she wasn't clear on exactly on how the land is portioned out. The area where the developments are now happening have actually been in her family for quite some time. This goes back to, from what I understand, 30, 40 years back, and then some from previous relatives. So what is now to us is no longer part of the family. This is where our children, and they used to hunt, ride their horses, so on and so forth. Now we are strangers in our own land. I understand how that goes. I completely understand. You can't hold on to land forever. Most of that land was sold the right way to investors and developers, and that's just the way things go. So I am aware of the way those things are. I was born in Laredo, Texas, and I've come to find out that the majority of the investors and a lot of the areas there, whether on paper or silent investors, are all from Laredo, which I find it weird, I guess, that I left Laredo and they're all here. It's just the way it works. I went to private school, and it's funny. And I was thinking, well, I guess we all have the same taste in land. It's a good thing. Beautiful land. Absolutely love it out there. I, too, grew up in the city. Again, Laredo, bless you. Laredo is very different. Rules, the laws are the laws, but the way the culture is very, very different. Where we live right now, it's peaceful, it's beautiful, it's close enough to the city. I don't have to sell you all the idea, because this is why you're developing the land. I understand that this area is also the fastest growing area in most of the country. So there is a lot of interest in the land. When we we went into the whole thing with the land, it wasn't necessarily for investment as in it comes, trying to get money out of it. To us, like I said, it was in her family. It's been basically passed on. There's a lot of memories there. I technically don't believe in selling out. That's just my little idea of, saving my dignity, I guess, when it comes to some of these things. I do find it funny, like I tell her, it's funny how in the last couple of years, when the development started, we started having people breaking in, not necessarily just to my land. Like, yes, some of our animals have been affected, but more to the neighbors, or the neighbors that we had that we just recently sold. But we don't have any other protections. And I don't really need them. We are aware of our rights, and we do protect our land. But at the same token, I don't like regulations imposed on us. Again, I understand that the city is expanding, and we must basically conform. Understood. But with those, it's got to be a give and take. From what I understand, and please bear in mind, I do apologize because I too was just barely told about the meeting today. So I'm not prepared. I don't have the material. I haven't even seen the maps because for the longest time we weren't even told about how these things would work. We were kept in the dark. Even when we would call, we were always pushed to the side. I had to go to Guadalupe County to pull out some records, found out that some of those records were not accurate or up to date. Then they told me, you actually have to go to a different location. Back and forth, a lot of being pushed to the side. So, of course, it was very, very difficult for me to get the proper information. Of course, I don't have the resources to hire real estate attorneys or anything like that to go and find the information that I need. I shouldn't have to. It should be a right of every single citizen within this community to have access to the information that's going to affect their living status. So again, I do apologize if I am ill-informed or if I say something that is not accurate. Please forgive me. I'm just going based on what I understand. Once again, we have been living out on the land. We've worked it. I just put up a fence. I'm a city boy trying to live a country life. It's not as easy as I thought. It's not like the movies. But now the city is going into our land. And coming from a corporate world, I completely understand how that works, but I also understand the country living. So I have to find a way to make the both work. For me, for my wife, for my family, and for my future. So with that in mind, I understand there's changes and there's developments and growth that is planned out. I haven't really seen every single change that's going to happen out there. I do find it difficult because there's so many people out there that go out there. I don't know who is who. Just recently, there's a lot of hunting that goes out there. I hunt on my land, dove hunt. But this last time, one of our neighbors, which I'm sure you all might know who those investors are. Again, the main investors are from Laredo. I had to, it's not like they wanted to tell me, but I had to find out, and I found out, and I had to call some people in Laredo, say, hey, did you know that so-and-so related, so on and so forth. Funny how things work. But some of the rules affect the way we live out there, safety, so on and so forth, and it's all to make a profit, and I understand, but when some of these things affect the safety of my children, it's really bad. Game wardens were called out there because people were shooting onto our land. I have children there, and I have every right to protect myself. The problem is that along with people encroaching into our land, they're bringing in ideas and rules that don't necessarily apply, not legally. We've been actually stopped from entering our own land. And keep in mind that this is not through private roads. These are easements that have been passed down. Now, I don't know if you all have which forms you have, but I can tell you based on the history of our families that have owned the land, not what a paper or a developer might say. I'm going based, again, on what has been grandfathered in due to easements that have been in our land forever. We've been stopped and even threatened of being charged to enter our own land. Number one, of course I can argue that all day because it's illegal, but the thing is that they don't know it's illegal. So I have no protections from actually, and I know I can raise and call the officers out there and create a whole drama, but I've got kids in the car. Those, I shouldn't be kept away from entering my own land through our easements. It shouldn't work like that. Not just have we been stopped from entering our land, but we've been told that it doesn't matter because in a couple of years, the city's going to take over your land. Now, whether that's true or whether that's because of investors that have said something or misinterpreted, it's just wrong to wear that type of authority and throw that authority around. And it's funny because when I actually spoken to some of the actual owners of the land, they said, those guys don't know what they're talking about. They just run stuff for us. But they don't know that I actually know, and I went to school with their kids in San Agustin, a private school in Laredo. And I don't use that. I don't say that because that's wrong. I shouldn't have to say, oh, I'm this or I'm that. There's no reason for that. We should all be civilized when we speak to each other as neighbors, as future neighbors, or as investors. It doesn't matter. They should never disrespect my wife. I did have a gentleman that runs some of the developments out here threaten my wife. There's no way to run any form of business, legal or illegal. Again, keep in mind, I come from Laredo, so I know what illegal looks like. This is not Laredo. This is a beautiful community where we're supposed to have schools, a future. I don't know how things are, but that's no way to treat a lady. It's no way to treat my children. That's not a way to treat our land. So, although I know that, again, this is open basically to any concerns, my biggest concern is once the dust settles, what happens to our family, to our land, and to our future? I've gotten no answers from anyone. I've asked, what are you all planning on doing? We don't know. Even though I see plans in Laredo, I've seen them on blueprints. Yet, I can't get an answer here. How they manage to get those things, I know how. I don't have those resources. And I'm not about to go and tap my family over that. That's not right. So all I'm asking is just consideration, a share of information. It should be open information. And I would hate to just be pointed to a website that has not been updated in the last 10 years. I worked in, like I said, in corporate America for the longest time. And there's nothing worse than sending someone to a link that's broken. That's a customer service issue. Now, I know that this is a public arena where funds that come from a community and accountability is different than in a company. But I'm just asking for the due process, the respect, and to establish some kind of an idea of what is going to happen with our family. Again, I don't want it to be in the dark that someone told us that our land was going to be, it's almost like a bad word, but eminent domain was going to apply to our land. And that eminent domain was going to apply to our land because of a road that's supposed to connect with Green Valley Road. And even the blueprints I saw on Laredo, that was not there. The fact that some people are using some of those tactics, not good. Now, just like we all think that our children are the greatest in the world, my land, it's a small parcel now compared to the land that was previously owned by the family. It's a small piece of land. But to us, that land is worth millions and millions. Why? Because that's the future I promised my children, not for the money. The memories, our horses. That's where I thought I would retire and maybe one day get buried. Just like my forefathers did in their lands. Obviously, that might not be the case. I understand, and I'm still young enough to start all over again, and I'm not afraid of it. I'll do it all over again. I'll be wiser, slower, but wiser. So, all I ask is to just keep us in mind. I know I'm not going to have a whole group of people petitioning. I don't have all the neighbors. It's just us out there now. So for me to try to come up with, 30,000, I don't know what it is here, 35% or something that you might need to make some petitions. I know there's numbers like that, but I don't have the time to do that. I don't have the resources to do that. And I don't know if eminent domain is actually just something that has been tossed around. I know that the counties do reserve those rights. I'm aware. But pushing the little guy out because I don't have the resources, the lawyers, or the deep pockets, and threatening someone out with eminent domain it's wrong. Most of y'all are voted in by little people, like myself. Again, I don't have the 35,000 petitioners or anything like that. I just have myself, my wife, and my children. And all we ask is for the simple respect of, like I said, information, so we know what to do with our land. As she mentioned a little while ago, we have no water out there. We've had to spend quite a bit of money on drilling for water. Drilled for water, not a good well. Not just that, my land actually happens to sit at the highest level of basically any surroundings. So I know, I also used to be formerly in real estate. I did that for quite some time. My father owned a mortgage company, so I'm fully aware how these things work. That is a very prime location. But again, that's not what I'm into. I like the fact that we can look out the window and see New Braunfels. We look to the side and we can see Civil and Schertz. We look that way and we can see the fireworks even in Marion. So 4th of July, we're surrounded by fireworks basically all the way around us. It's beautiful out there. And some of the neighbors that I do have, I am new to the area myself. Some of these gentlemen and families have been in there for quite some time. And from the few neighbors that I've seen, they've been all outstanding people. Well-mannered, decent, hard-working people. I don't know if they can voice themselves the way I might be able to, or maybe they're more informed than I am, and I might be over-speaking. But I would like every single one of my neighbors to be granted the same respects, rights, and most importantly, their dignity, because some of these people have worked their land their entire lives. Again, I don't have the lawyers or the deep pockets or anything like that. All I have is just my word. I am willing to cooperate with whatever the county asks and do whatever it takes to make things proper with everyone out there. Safety is my biggest concern. Crime rate has started to rise. We've seen a lot of people shooting out there. Wrong calibers for the wrong animals. Yeah, I know, because I'm a city boy too, and I did the same mistakes. But some of these people are out there wandering around, breaking into some of the houses that were there, that have just been broken into, setting up fires as well that I'm having to put out with the water I don't even have. So I can do it. I ain't scared of it. Just, if you're going to ask something from us, I would like to have something back in return. So with that, I'll get back. Again, this is only based on the information I have. I'm sure that you all have other things to present, maybe other things I've never even heard of. To me, the biggest thing is don't take our land. If you're going to develop, fine. Let the market do its thing. Don't threaten my wife or try to use scare tactics. And I know it's not you all. Obviously, it's not you all. It's some of the people that might invest through the city. So let's just not turn a blind eye to some of those things that are unjust. Those are not the type of people we want running our system. That's not what you want here for you. Thank you all very much. I'll excuse myself.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone else wish to address the commission during hearing of residents? All right, then we'll move on to the next item. Item 3A, consent agenda minutes for the January 23rd, 2019 regular meeting. Commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda consisting of the minutes of the January 23rd, 2019 regular meeting.
Okay, I have a motion to approve by Commissioner Outlaw. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Greenwald. Comments, questions? Call for a vote.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5 ayes, no nays. Motion carries. Item 4A, public hearing, ZC 2019-001. Hold a public hearing, consider and make a recommendation on a request to rezone approximately 2.5 acres of land from pre-development district pre to general business district GB to general business district GB, located at 6485 IH35, City of Schertz, Comal County, Texas. Nick.
All right, so as Commissioner Dalla said, this is a zone change for Schertz Lot 2, also known as 6485 I-35, from general business and pre-development to general business. So just for your reference here, the subject property here is outlined in green. This is I-35, and this red line here is the City of Schertz limit boundary here. In preparation for this hearing, 3 public hearing notices were mailed out to the surrounding property owners within 200 feet on Thursday, January 31st, and at this time, staff has received 2 responses from the surrounding property owners, both in favor of the zone change. Public hearing notice sign was also posted on Friday, February 1st, and here's a picture of that. Here's the current zoning map in the area. The location of Schertz Lot 2, or 6485 I-35, here is indicated with the gold star on this property here. You can see that the subject property is partially zoned general business on this side and also pre-development district with the split detailed right here. You can also see a better, kind of more detailed version of that zoning split in the zoning exhibit that's in your packets and the agenda. So as for the adjacent zoning and land uses, to the north we have the I-35 right-of-way. To the east we have pre-development district zoned property. It's currently commercial business and automobile sales. And then to the west and south, it is zoned general business district and pre-development district. and is largely undeveloped with small agricultural and residential uses down below, down here. So overall, the subject property is surrounded by an automobile sales business, interstate highway right-of-way, and a large piece of land that is mostly undeveloped with small agricultural purposes. The proposed general business zoning district will allow for the development of the commercial businesses, which is compatible with the current surrounding land uses and their zoning districts. The proposed rezone would have a minimal impact on the existing infrastructure and the public facilities and services here in this area. So this is a map of the current comprehensive land use plan through the future land use plan and the North Schertz sector plan. And according to the comp plan, the property is designated as commercial campus, as you can see from the lighter red color here. Once again, the property is denoted with the gold star. Commercial campus is intended to encourage the development of lower intensity commercial and office uses in the locations between major intersections as a buffer between the highway and the neighborhoods that are around it. The land use mix would be office, research, flex office, retail services, light industrial, light assembly uses, and other institutional uses. And so the next slide here, we can see the applicability of general business to commercial campus land designation. So on the previous slide, we saw the definition of commercial campus, and according to Unified Development Code Article 5, general business is intended to provide suitable areas for the development of non-residential uses, which offer a wide variety of retail and service establishments that are generally oriented towards serving the overall needs of the community, and these zoning districts are usually located along principal transportation corridors defined in Article 5. So the general business zoning district would allow the property to better represent this commercial campus land use by regulating the potential development to promote these non-residential uses, to offer a wide variety of kind of retail and service establishments that are appropriate for the properties around I-35. This means that the general business zoning district is applicable to the commercial campus land use designation at this site. But not only is zone change applicable with the comp plan, but 1.65 out of the 2.5 acres in the property are already zoned general business, like you saw in the earlier zoning split, with a little bit of it still zoned pre-development. This zone change would simplify the property zoning designation into one zoning district while still remaining compatible with the surrounding land uses and adjacent major highway. The zoning designation of general business would also match the vast majority of the other properties in Schertz along I-35. The entire 35 corridor is mainly zoned general business currently. So based on the general compatibility with the comp plan and the surrounding land uses, the subject property's existing split zoning status of GB and PRE, and the property's adjacency to the major interstate highway, is staff's opinion that general business district is the most appropriate zoning district for this tract of land. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the zone change application as submitted. The authorized agent for the application is here, and the project engineer as well for any questions.
All right, well, this is a public hearing, so we're open the public hearing at 6:26. If anyone wishes to speak on this topic, please make your way up to the podium. State your name and address for the record.
Hello, good evening, Commissioners. My name is Caroline McDonald. I'm with the land use firm Brown & Ortiz at 112 East Pecan in San Antonio, Texas. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Merlin 21, and we are, as Nick stated, we are requesting a rezoning of about 2.5 acres. It's general business and pre-development right now, and we just want it consistent throughout the property. We do have a corresponding item on the agenda that addresses our specific use, and I will get to that if possible, but I'm here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
All right, does anybody else wish to speak?
Hi, I'm Chris Van Herdy with HMT Engineering, 410 North Seguin Avenue, New Braunfels, Texas. I'm the engineer that has prepared these drawings, and the survey was done under my supervision. And I'm here to answer questions as well.
Thank you. All right, anybody else? All right, public hearings closed at 6:28. Commissioners. Comments, questions?
Mr. Chairman, I think it just makes sense to make that one
code so that they can move on with their landing.
I'll just add on that one of the things that I talked about with staff this morning at our meeting is that as part of their upgrades to the facility that they will be addressing all the code update requirements for life safety issues.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we recommend approval of ZC 2019-001.
All right, and this will be a recommendation to council to approve.
Right.
All right, have a motion by Commissioner Outlaw. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A second by Commissioner Ray. Any other comments, questions? All right, call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5 ayes, no nays, motion carries. All right, item 4B, SUP 2019-001, hold a public hearing, consider and make a recommendation on a request for a specific use permit to allow an automobile repair major land use on approximately 2.5 acres of land, more specifically described as Schertz Lot 2, located at 6485 IH 35, City of Schertz, Comal County, Texas. Nick.
All right, so as Mr. Dawes said, so this is the same property for the zone change application you just heard. Just to quickly refamiliarize yourself with the location, subject property here is outlined in green. This is I-35, and the red line is the City of Schertz limit boundary on the northeastmost port of I-35. So once again, in preparation for this hearing, 3 public hearing notices were mailed out to the property owners within 200 feet on January 31st. At this time, staff has also received 2 responses for this application, both in favor of the specific use permit. Once again, here's the current zoning map of the area. The location of Schertz Lot 2 is again indicated with the gold star, and currently the zoning is still split general business and redevelopment. So this proposed specific use permit would essentially allow the applicant to basically legally utilize a land use that is consistent with the commercial businesses that have operated on the subject property in the past. For instance, from 2012 to 2018, the subject property was utilized as a tire business, known as Tire and Wheel Connection. Therefore, the applicant's proposed automated repair major land use would not represent any significant change to how the property is currently being utilized. This also means that the granting of the specific use permit would not have an adverse effect on the surrounding properties. The subject property is currently surrounded, like I said in the previous presentation, by an automobile sales business here to the east, the interstate highway of I-35 to the north, and an approximately 100-acre parcel of land to the south and southwest that has minor agricultural and residential uses way deep in the property, but is mostly undeveloped. Since this proposed land use is not something new to the area, it is consistent with most of the last decade, it would not have an adverse effect on the adjacent properties. Here's the conceptual site plan provided with a specific use permit application. The applicant is proposing to utilize the existing approximately 8,000 square foot building as an automobile repair commercial business on the around 2.5-acre tract of land. So the actual structure that already exists on the site is currently a legal non-conforming structure. It is allowed to remain in its current state as long as it is not enlarged, expanded, or relocated. The applicant will not be doing any exterior modifications on the building until the structure itself does not have to be brought up to the current architectural standards or exterior design facade material standards. So here's a zoomed-in version of the conceptual site plan. I just wanted to point out a few key points on it. The site currently has access provided from the I-35 frontage road up here, as you can see. The applicant is not proposing any additional pavement, and they're actually replacing the existing graveled area, which is this material here you can see that goes all the way around the back of the site. They're replacing all of that with grass sod, which would greatly decrease the overall amount of impervious coverage. This will bring the site's total impervious coverage down to around 46%. The applicant will bring up the entire site to current code standards, however, regarding all necessary life safety items, as Mr. Dahl said. As you can see here, this will include the updating of the fire lane, which will be of variable width. The smallest point here is 27 feet, still over the minimum requirements, and the largest point here in front of the building at 53 feet. There will be 40 parking spaces, all up to our standards of 20 by 10 feet. This also means that they will be fully compliant with the necessary landscaping regulations defined in UDC section 21.9.7.h, entitled Parking Area Landscaping. which essentially means that they'll have a parking landscaping island every 12 spaces and at the terminus of every parking row. They'll also be planting a new cedar elm tree in each landscaping island. The applicant will also be responsible for meeting all of the current life safety code requirements and the building permitting process, dependent on what they do with the business. So this proposed specific use permit to allow an automotive repair major land use is appropriate for the site for a few reasons. Number one, it will not have an adverse impact on the surrounding properties. It'll allow the property to essentially legally continue utilizing a land use that has already been in existence on the property for the last 7 years. But now the applicant is going through the new applicant is going through the proper channels in order to ensure that their land use is legal in accordance with the Schertz UDC requirements that they're responsible for meeting. Also, the land use is compatible with the directly adjacent major interstate highway and the associated commercial businesses all along the I-35 corridor in Schertz. Therefore, staff is recommending approval of the specific use permit to allow an automotive repair major land use conditioned upon the following. A building permit is approved within 1 year of the adoption of the SUP ordinance. And B, the use begins operation within 2 years of the issuance of the necessary building permits. Once again, the authorized agent and the project engineer are also here.
All right, and again, this is a public hearing, so we'll open the public hearing at 6:36. Anyone wishing to come and speak on this item, please make your way up to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Yes, Caroline McDonald again, 112 East Pecan, here to answer any specific questions you may have. Thank you.
All right, anybody else? All right, close the public hearing at 6:37. Commissioners, comments, questions?
This is basically a zoning case, right?
So this particular item is the SUP.
Excuse me?
For the specific use. We've already done the zoning with the last hearing and vote.
There won't be a plat or anything. This will be it, right?
Right. So
There won't
this
be a follow-on plat.
Right. So the associated site plan that came with this specific use permit, they will be held to those regulations. The previous case, the application you just heard, was the zone change to make the entire property general business, which is necessary for the specific use permit of automotive repair major.
Mr. Chairman, it sounds like we're getting an upgrade if this is approved, so I don't see it as a bad thing.
And I would agree with you on that comment. All right, well, if there are no further comments or questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend that we pass SUP 2019-001 and recommend approval to council.
With the conditions? Yes, okay, so we amend that motion to include with the conditions. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, a second by Commissioner Greenwald. Any other comments or questions? All right, call for a vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. 5 ayes, no nays, motion passes. Next item on the agenda, 4C, ZC 2018-001. Hold a public hearing, consider and act upon a request to rezone approximately 64 acres of land to Planned Development District, PDD, located approximately 1,000 feet west of the intersection of Engle Road and the private street Big John Lane. Emily.
Good evening, Commissioners. So to get your bearings, the subject property is outlined in green here. So this is 35, Eckert Road, Engle Road, Big John Lane, subject property. So I thought this slide would be beneficial. It shows Cypress Point here. This existing purple is the existing Parklands subdivision, Planned Development District. And then once again outlined here in the yellow is the proposed Parklands 2. So you will see a portion of it is actually within the existing Parklands PDD. The majority of it is considered outside the city limits under delayed annexation agreements, and then there is a portion, roughly 3 acres, that is currently within the city limits but zoned pre-development. So the applicant is requesting to rezone all 64 acres into Planned Development District, which will consist of single-family residential and public parkland. So on February 1st, 4 public hearing notices were mailed to the property owners within 200 feet. That is all the property owners within the red buffer. This time we've received no responses in favor, opposed to, or neutral. On February 1st, the notice signs were also placed. So the Schertz sector plan from 2013 did not evaluate this area of northern Schertz. Therefore, the future land use map still designates it as single-family residential and agricultural conservation. But since the comprehensive land use plan was done, and this section has not been updated, it doesn't take into account Cypress Point, Parklands, the subdivisions that have been approved in that area that make single-family residential more appropriate for this tract than the agricultural conservation. So this is the proposed master development plan. They are proposing to break the property up into 4 units. So this is Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3, and Unit 4. And each unit does contain some of each of the 3 lot types. We'll get into that. So there's 3 different lot types, SF 7200, SF 8200, and SF 9000. There's approximately 128 of the SF 7200, which is a 60 by 120 lot approximately. 35 of the SF 8200 and 51 of the SF 9000, totaling 214 dwelling units for a 3.52 average unit per acre. So the master plan is proposing an additional 2.67 acres of parkland, which is identified by this black dashed line. So I want to show you one other slide, and then we'll come back to this one, and I'll explain more about what improvements they're proposing. So the existing Parklands Park is 5 acres and is shown here. So just to get your bearings, this section, this area here, is the proposed Parklands 2, what is being heard tonight. So this section, immediately adjacent to the park, is that area that they're proposing to rezone from Parklands into Parklands 2 to increase, instead of doing these lots, to do the 2.67 acres of park. In addition to that, it'll create a 7.67 acre park instead of the 5 acres that we have currently. And they are proposing improvements such as interactive musical instruments, 4 pickleball courts, a second playground, a baseball diamond, some additional sidewalks. So the design standards do impose some additional fencing and requirements specifically next to the open space. And within the PDD design standards, it calls out the lots specifically by name or by number. But I wanted to show them on the exhibit. So these red lines here and here identify the 6-foot wood fence with masonry columns that is going to be required per the PDD. And the blue in this area is the 35 feet right-of-way dedication. There is a 70-foot east-west residential collector proposed on the master thoroughfare plan that runs adjacent to this property. So they are doing the 35 feet of right-of-way dedication. In addition to that, they are doing a local street stub to that collector. They're also doing multiple stubs to Parklands subdivision here, their main entrance here, another here, and then they're also proposing a stub to the adjacent property. So although staff is recommending approval based on the surrounding subdivisions, including the existing zoned 194-acre Parklands subdivision, increased park area, provided open space, and increased fencing requirements, staff did have concerns when we met with the development team on kind of the lack of innovative development we like to see in a planned development district, specifically including the average lot width being 66.5 feet, which is very close to our 60 by 120 or R6 zoning district, which we're not allowed to do a straight zoning to at this point. In addition, the proposed design standards do not account or require specific landscaping or utilization of the open space for specific purposes. The majority of the open spaces that are proposed are for drainage, or at least that's the intentions at this point. Additionally, the proposed design standards do not require increased walkability, such as hike and bike trails, except for the 2 20-foot pedestrian access easements that are from internal to the subdivision to the east-west collector. The staff is making a recommendation of approval of the zoning applications, but is going to show deference to what the Planning and Zoning Commission states. The applicant is here and does have a presentation that they would like to do.
All right, thank you, Emily. All right, this is a public hearing, so we'll open public hearing at 6:45. And if the applicant wants to come up and make your presentation, please do so. Good evening, Mr. Warren.
George Warren, 3421 Pleasant Parkway, San Antonio. Thank you for taking time to review this with me. Hopefully I can work with you. So this project, we're representing Denton Development on this project. They're the developers that originally pushed forward with the development of Parklands, as you see above here. Some of the items that became constraints of this project, and that's why we planned it. We have worked a long time with the city staff, gone through many versions of this, and we'll talk a little bit about this. Yes, sir. If you look up above here, this plan was approved about 3 years ago. What we did is took the approved plan and showed basically the open space that is notated in green. What you'll see on there, and what particular is to us and what we've concentrated on, if you're driving in on what's Parklands Boulevard, the looping street that goes through, all to the right is really the open space that you see that's really activated in this project that's a consideration. We sit about 2/3 of the way down in the Pender track. Pender ownership, which is Parklands Phase 2, and about to walk you through what our constraints were with land planning this project. Looking at it, you see the breakdown originally of our project. We had multiple different products with variations. What we have found in the first phases, the 50 and 60-foot product has been activated, and we've seen that our 60-foot product is running out. So this project gave us an opportunity to come with an alternate product to replenish that. And this approach is now at a 65-foot product, which is larger than the product, particularly to this track we're trying to replace. The open space, as was mentioned by city staff, was limited to 5 acres, and in review of what was done, because the ample amount of open space was in place and the hike and bike trail was put along what is a major thoroughfare extension of Parklands, which was formerly Probeezy, the improvements themselves were limited. So we had a lot of open space, but very little improvements in relation to the size of this project. And so in reviewing this additional track, we look at options to enhance and activate the open space and make a larger public park, as well as a private park. Right here, what I'm showing is the proposed project as a 70 by 120 project, which is the baseline of what you consider for approval in the city of Schertz. An 8,400 square foot product, but this is strictly a grid them out development to see what a baseline would be if we just came in with a strict zoning, didn't come through your PDD process and really sit with staff and look at things that could really mirror up and be more consistent with the Parklands project, which has been previously approved. What we found with this is you see that the project is rectangular. One limitation, that's great for development, but as far as creating really points of interest, there aren't any areas that are particularly of interest that would be either heavily treed or naturally set aside for open space, whether it's the geometry of the track or otherwise. So that was, when we're working through this project with staff, what we found was just some challenges to make it really have the feel of Parkland. So the thought was, how do we achieve that? So you'll see an up close presentation of, this is Grid City USA, the exact thing Schertz is not looking for. This would be a straight zoning. And because Denton is focused on this track and been involved in this track, they want to make sure that it still has elements of what was being done before. Obviously, it's subjective, but that was their really concern. Parklands Parkway, which is for Obese, it's part of the major thoroughfare, and therefore public access. Anybody comes, can tag on, get zoning, and develop as approved. So if it's approved as R2, 70 by 120, this is what could happen. This is the final layout that was come up with for this project. The previous layout, which you saw was gridded, shows 232 lot yield. This one, I believe, is 214, which is a loss of 18 lots off of what would be considered a base zoning. What we also notate in taking a close look at the configuration of streets, we try to put as much curvilinear streets as we could. What that does is create opportunity for oversized lots, variation of lots, limitation of street shots, speed considerations, et cetera. Also, what can't be seen here, but we'll take a look at it here in a second, is it also creates an opportunity for better circulation and access for fire, Commissioner Outlaw. As we look at being able to connect one side to the other, we had some planning limitations with the original Parklands, which the stub out here helps provide at least additional circulation from one stretch to the other. There's some elements here that are mirrored. As you see the entrance coming off of Parklands at your top left corner, you'll see some of those design elements in Parklands, which are these oversized knuckle sack eyebrows with a big open space in the middle, kind of presenting as you come in. What this represents is basically illustrating what was accomplished in going through this process with the city, trying to create as much compromise that could be economically withstood given all the constraints of this project. This shows a variation of lot product based upon the curvilinear streets and knuckle sacks, et cetera. We get a large amount of lots that are not just your standard base zoning. This is largely a variation of product in terms of lots and unique lots that will be available for consumers to come in and buy. What this shows is although it's pointed out that the open space is largely drainage, the drainage in this really, there's some around the perimeter, but there is buffering that's going to be done off of this, and we're trying to approach the majority of this as open space considerations. You'll see there's a lot of pockets or greenbelt buffers that are really being added to this. Whether it's along Big John or the stub outs, we're trying to provide extra buffers off of that at the entry and the side entry, the streets that feed off both ways, provide a little additional open space to provide accents to it, be able to landscape, be able to handle opportunities such as mail kiosks, et cetera. And the bottom line to this project is, as far as a product is concerned, this is an example of one of the home sites for a builder that's currently out here. This is likely the builder that's going to be out here. It's going to be a high-end community. Currently, Ashton Woods is out here. They're building about 272 to 325. So we're looking to basically add on a premium product to this project. When we look at how this project fits in into that rectangular shape that just dropped in, you see also, I was pointing out along the right side of the street as you're driving from Eckerd Road and this really curvy collector road that's on the thoroughfare plan. You see along there at the first turn, I don't know if you can see that, I can't have a pointer, but that red symbol, what this project gives the opportunity to the existing community is for additional funding on the private side, not just the public parks, but the private sides to add a pool. They're talking about a pool. Haven't designated the size, probably Junior Olympic and additional private amenities that would help out the communities and the home builders be able to hit better price points. And then, as pointed out additionally, the exaggeration of the public park and the additional amenities that will be there, be placed there, and what that would look like. So we feel that with the current layout, the reduction in lots from the gridded 70 by 120 of a minus 18 lots there, the developer of Denton Development for Parklands has also given to this project open space to extend the public park. They've sacrificed 9 lots. That's a total of 27 lots from this project. So these are the compromises that they were putting out there to try to accommodate some extra creativity and a better comprehensive plan. Again, this is subjective, but this is at the same time something that they felt and spent much time, a lot of time really contemplating what would be best from the community perspective. So in the end, 27 less lots, varying lot product, mirroring a lot of the same, at least design elements that we're looking for in Parklands. The access, as you look to the top that goes to the north and to the west, you'll see the stubs that project out and provide connectivity to the existing Parklands plan, which then really helps circulation, both from traffic perspective, but also for ways out for fire. Additionally, a very attractive private pool and improvements in a more central location to the project that otherwise would not be there. The developer also wanted to note that they have provided improvement to Eckerd Road in the early phases, which has enhanced this area in excess of really what rough proportionality has reported before. And they plan to continue to invest in this corridor. They're heavily invested in this project. They believe is going to be a success as they continue to invest. And they're very they believe very much in this product and this concept. This is a close-up look, which we've seen before, the public park and its expansion, and dotted in black are the 9 lots that were eliminated, and also represents a continuation or continuity of the green space on that one side as we lead into the entrance of the Parklands Phase 2 at the top right. Track. Any questions? Feel free to ask, sit down, or go back.
Let's finish the public hearing, and then we'll open it up for questions with the commissioner. So, any other members of the audience wish to come forward and speak on this item, please come up, state your name and address for the record, and let us have your comments, please.
I live at 1300 English Road. I got some real concerns about this. I don't know if any of y'all are aware, we came in here in 2008 to the previous developer to stop 1,200 homes on this land. If you don't mind, can I get the map that you had of that, the whole subdivision? See that map that I'm talking about? That new Parklands 2, what he's talking about, that rectangle, that butts up to my place. Well, if you take the straight line all the way back over Engle Road, that's all that property is on a slope. All of it. He's talking about this green space. Well, there's a whole lot more green space there right now. We had a 5-inch rain a while back. I've got 15 acres back in that catty corner part right there. I got 4 foot of water with 5 inches, 4 foot deep, over 300 foot across. No homes on it all. What do you think that's going to do? That's not no 2002 flood or 1998 flood. The 98 flood and the 2002 flood, it was so bad it shut down 35 because that creek that runs through there meets up with another creek down on Smucks Lane, and when it goes down 35, it blocked. There was 4 foot of water across 35. So now what are you going to put all these homes in there? Where do you think all that water is going to go? It's going to wash my fence lines out. It's going to take out my property. You know, trash from all this subdivision is going to come into my property. You know, there's some real concerns you need to take. All these homes that are down in that lower portion of it, if you have a 2002 flood again or 98 flood, those homes are going to be underwater. Because in 2002, I didn't have 4 foot of water. I had 6 foot. And that was across my whole property down there. 6 foot of water. You got homes that are going to be in that area. What do you think is going to happen to them homes? You're going to have to start giving flood insurance to those people. You know, this really need to stop and think about it. In 2008, we stopped the developer, the council that was in, we stopped the developer from putting 1,200 homes on that property because of that flood, all that area. If I'd have known this was going to be like this tonight, I'd have brought pictures of all the floods. I got pictures of floods, and not even real floods, 5 inches of rain where it's been through my property. So y'all need to really consider this. This is not a good idea. There's going to be some homes flooded. People, you know, there's a low water crossing there on Engle Road. They raised it here a while back, several years ago. Guadalupe County and Canal County got together, and they raised it 4 foot. Matter of fact, New Braunfels needs to put a flood gauge there. They don't think there needs to be a flood gauge. The last 5-inch rain we had, there was 3 foot of water over that. So, you know, this is serious drainage area. I mean, that whole area is on a hill. Not only that, when you get to the bottom of that, there's another hill coming up towards 35. So you got 2 hills draining into one. And that's going to be a disaster. I really think y'all need to consider this zoning. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Again, please, your name and address for the record.
Yes, sir. Andres Gonzalez, once again, 360 Big John Lane. Using the same map, actually, my neighbor is absolutely right. I actually live on one of the hilltops. All the water runs down. I actually do have pictures in some of our phones of our 3 vehicles that have been completely ruined and destroyed. A Tahoe, 2014 Tahoe, Ecoline van, V10, destroyed it because of a flood. Now, I absolutely love the proposal. It looks like it's going to, a great community. The parks, the whole thing, great place to live. However, and again, I'm not, I never saw how it was planned or anything like that, so I'm just giving my 2 cents. Like Ronald Reagan, simplify it for me. Explain it to me like I'm not that smart. My land is, I'm placing my mouse right here, is right here. So Parklands is right here, which this was all, used to be our family's land. All this used to be the family's land. Now, we live right here. It's about 15 acres more or less, land right here. Now, currently, this was Big John Lane, which it runs right into my my home. My home's right here. Right here is an easement, which has been in our family, again, forever. That's why it's called Big John Lane. Right here is another street. Well, this school's not there yet, so it goes all the way down, and it connects with what used to be for Basic. It's called Iola's Way. I don't know if the map will show it. I don't know if I can zoom in or not. I don't know if it shows it. I doubt it. But it is an easement. Those easements were there for families to access the different parcels of land that we owned. This was owned by Nancy, which I believe that is also the name of the land. Right? Hinders, that's the last name. Well, they owned what is now the second phase. They own all that land. and on our side, we own this land. Now we only own this part. So, like I said, it looks like a great place, but in order for us to enter, it looks like we're landlocked. And again, unless I'm not reading, because I can't see the details into the map. But Eckerd is somewhere on this side, if I'm reading it correct. And Engel is somewhere basically on their side of the road. In order for me to enter, I would have to either enter through this entrance, which is where the signs were placed for this announcement, or I would have to enter through Eckerd Road and go what used to be Philbazy. This road is the new road, but Philbazy is still somewhere in there. I have to access that road and then come through a road that's obviously not going to be there anymore. So that's going to landlock me. Again, I'm already having issues getting into my own land from people, and I won't say because it's not been any of these gentlemen. It's been some random people that go out there and tell me it's going to be their land, so on and so forth. Everyone has a stake out there all of a sudden. So I'm already having difficulties getting into my own land because of people putting limits on me entering my own land. But now, with this new development, I'm landlocked. Not just do I not have access to get my water, now I'm not going to have access to actually even. I guess I would have to ask everyone here for some kind of be able to allow me to build something, because right now I can't really build anything because we're about to be annexed, from my understanding, next year or something like that. So from what I understand, we can't really build anything. So if I can't build anything, I can't build a helipad. I can't go into my own land. I can't provide water for my children. I don't know how they're going to go to school. I don't even know. I mean, well, maybe they could just jump the fence, which brings another thing. I hunt on my land. If I remember correctly, there's supposed to be, I don't remember, this feet away from hunting, basically, guns, away from a school zone. So that's going to limit my hunting. Not just as the hunting, but again, it's been something that's been passed down generation after generation. Everyone's hunted here. I learned how to shoot there. She learned how to shoot there. Her mom learned how to shoot there. Again, I understand progress. I'm all for it. But again, like my favorite president did say, trust but verify. I just need to make sure that I'm not being left out. Again, please explain it to me like I'm not that smart, because it looks like I cannot access my land. And if I am to, let's just say they rework it, because I don't think I'm not engineer, so I can't speak on their behalf, but if they can put such a beautiful place, I'm sure they can make room for me to access my own land. Now, I'm sure it's going to change the count of land, of homes that they able to create, but I need access to the land. Now, there is a tank or some form that they've developed. They were pretty good at developing that because, gentleman here is right. When it rains, and you don't have to wait for any of the floods, I can show you just right now. As a matter of fact, I would love to take any of your police department cruisers out there, because I've had to tow them out. I've had to tow the sheriff department out twice with your SUVs. And sadly, I can't afford more SUVs. I'm broke, and that's a fact. And I didn't expect any award. As a matter of fact, one of the officers told me, make sure this doesn't get out. I don't blame him. He's driving an SUV. How do you get stuck? Easily. When they started developing the land on phase 1, a lot of the dirt, silt, like you said, they're up on hills. All this development, all this mud rushes down the stream, and it creates a mud lagoon, which, by the way, I've had to spend in the last year over $7,000 on adding rock that I don't have, and I shouldn't have to, because it's very easy for me to just make a case with the city or the developers, because they're the ones doing it. But I will say that there was one gentleman, and I'm not going to name any names because I don't know if he did it against his company that he runs or not, but he was very, very polite. And I know he works with the city and works with everyone here. Very good gentleman. Treated my wife with respect. Gave us an idea of what he could do. Outside of the resources that I know everything's a budget. Everything is about a budget. But he took the little bit that he could, a little rock, and threw it out. And just to, you know what? I appreciate that. Because to the city, it might not be much. You all have all the tools. You all have all the tractors. And it's not going to be much to just run it over 20, 30 minutes. But for me, it's about 2 months worth of work. Now, why should I have to pave that road, $7,000, and I just recently paved, not paved, wrong terminology, sorry, through base, if that's the proper terminology. On this road, which, by the way, some of my mounds of dirt are still there. Just in order for me to access the road, because when it rains, it is horrible out there. Absolutely horrible. So, concern number one, how am I going to access my land? And are they taking my easement away? And if that's taken away, what's in it to me? How do I keep losing, and nothing's given right? I know I don't have all the deep pockets, like I said. I get that. Access, hunting, school's so close. I don't have a problem with school. Maybe that'll save me the trip. Maybe I won't have to drive out. Maybe I can just get my kids to jump the fence. But hunting is a very important thing. I understand now we're going to have to change our lifestyle. I get that. Fine. Water thing, again, accessing the road with all the mud. Like I said, I've already gone through 3 vehicles, gentlemen. 3 vehicles. I don't have that capital. I don't have that money. And now I don't know how to access it unless you all create a road, again, which was what I was told when they told me I was going to get eminent domain, from Green Valley Road, fast past Eckerd Road, right onto my property, which is going to connect with Big John Lane. It's not in the plans there, but I saw someone have drawings of what they proposed. Now, I just don't know what can be done to solve these issues. We need access to our road, to our land. We need to be able to provide water, and that includes hauling it. And we carry everything about 1,000 gallons of water every single time we ship the water into our house, and that's about twice a month. So we need to be able to have a road that can sustain that type of travel. Now, once this development, again, I don't know how they're going to give me the access, but if this development is here, that puts me out. How is my land going to be protected from people moving in? And some of the other properties of some of our neighbors, I've seen when they sold, people start dumping a whole bunch of stuff. And that's to the Weston's properties, which are down over here on this side of the map. A whole bunch of couches and stuff like that. And all those things start piling up on my easement. Am I still going to be responsible for doing city cleaning, community cleaning? Again, I don't mean to complain. I'm just watching out for my company, and my company is my family. My first priority is my family. If someone can give me a resolution, and I'd be open to suggestions from anyone, because I know that this is something that can change, it can be amended and grow. I'm all for it. I would just like to see some resolutions and not be. All these things are new to me. I haven't even seen some of these things. This is all new to me. So if I would be better prepared, I'd give you a PowerPoint presentation. I'd be able to bring you statistics, whatever you want. I'm ill-prepared. That's your fault. That's mine. I dropped the ball. I'm not going to drop the ball again. Gentlemen.
Web from 63 John Lane. So as my husband said, it's not just this part of the property. So this part of the property, all this part, the Pender tract that was just bought, and this part. That has been in my family since the 1930s. My grandparents owned that. This is the last piece of property that we own. But when I step out on my front porch, I can currently see the houses being built here. As I said, we lived in San Antonio. I'm all for progression. I love the San Antonio lifestyle. Grocery store 5 minutes down the road. I've got a baby that needs diapers all the time. But that's family land. I know the family sold off. The developers were after the Pender tract for quite some time and only got it because Mr. Jordan passed away. Before me and my husband bought our property, it'll be 4 years this year. 4 years ago, the developers moved in and offered my great aunt $130,000 for our property. $130,000 will not even pay for a house that they are supposed to be building there. $130,000. Now, as my husband mentioned, I learned how to shoot a gun there. My mom learned how to shoot a gun there. My great aunt learned how to shoot a gun there. My great aunt's blind. My great aunt learned how to ride horses there. I learned how to ride horses on that property. Learned how to show my first show cattle on that property. Show pigs have been through that property. My great aunt owned this property all the way to the creek off Iola's Way. So they owned in total about 75 acres. Now, my goal was, let's move out of San Antonio and put our kids in FFA. I want them to show pigs. I want them to show cows. We're not going to be able to have pigs here. We're not going to be able to have cows here. What about my horses? What's going to happen when a kid sticks their hand in the fence on this side or on the school side and one of my horses injures them? Am I responsible for it? What happens if the electric fence shocks them? Am I responsible for it? I've got a 6 and a 7-year-old at home that knows to stay away from that electric fence, but not all kids that are not raised that way know to stay away from those things. I'm assuming y'all are from the Cibolo Schertz area. A lot of y'all are older. If y'all grew up in this area, y'all know exactly what I'm talking about with the land. Y'all also know what I'm talking about when developments are moving in. I am for growth. I own a commercial and residential cleaning company. I could step outside my front door and not even travel a mile away. That's great on mileage, right? That's great on repairs for my car. I'm for it. Is my land, can I turn it into commercial? I'll move it out of there in a heartbeat and we'll chalk this up and turn my property into a 24-hour daycare. I've owned a daycare before. School's right there. But it's not commercial, is it? It's all residential. Park right here. Park's going to flood. It's sitting in the middle of a creek right now. A creek is sitting right there. Oh, sorry. That creek floods every time. I mean, we've had drizzle for the past couple days. I have this much water standing right there. This much. Imagine, like Mr. Schwab was saying, a hard rain. The developers are out here. I'm not talking about you guys because I know y'all aren't physically on the land. I have trash blowing into my property already. What's going to happen when their trash blows onto my property, like my husband said? Are they going to be responsible for picking it up? Am I going to get littering tickets for going to put their trash back on their property? What's going to happen with the hunting? That's a livelihood for us. We lease out every year. What's going to happen with that? It's not only for enjoyment. Me and my husband have leased out 2 of the 4 years. I have documents proving how many people come and lease off my property. They have this whole area to lease off of, but they picked the little 13 acres. Why? We're a family. We allow them to bring their children. We allow them to show their children how to hunt on our property, just like we have taught our children how to hunt on that property and respect the land, which also teaches to respect the neighbors. The development's not going to stop. We're at the point, I guess y'all had the first meeting up about this part up here before we bought the property. I'm understanding the development is not going to stop. It is not going to stop. But I do not have to have houses so close to my property right here. And a school bumping up to my property? Come on. Seriously. I'm sure they're going to put the playground in the back. My kids aren't going to jump the fence to go here. We already pay for my children to go to New Braunfels ISD. My children will not go to this school. This school will not be a benefit to us. My children will remain in New Braunfels ISD until they graduate. The only way I can possibly see this property being a benefit to us at this point in time, unless the developers offer us an astronomical price because it is family land and it does hold sentimental value, is if it's turned to commercial property. And at that point, I already told you all my plans. I will reopen up a daycare there. Maybe a horse barn in the back. I'm partial to kids and I'm partial to horses. I've got 4 heads sitting on my property right now, and if my husband let me have more, I'd fill it all up. Something's got to give here. The roads, Iola's Way, named after my grandma. There's a creek there. Went round and round and round with the developers. 3 vehicles. I had my Tahoe for 2 weeks. 2 weeks, electrical fried in it. Send everything to the developers or my person of contact. I've contacted the city about this numerous times as well. And they come out and lay what? I think 12 loads of base? 12 loads of base is a joke to that. It's a joke. We still can't access that road. That's the reason why we go down, all the way down Big John to Ingle Road now. Like my husband said, just last year, we put $7,000 on Ingle Road. I don't mind paying for what I use, but if you're going to be driving on this road, developing y'all's property, fix what you drive on. Don't tear it up to begin with. It's just that simple. I've always been taught you tear something up, you fix it. You leave it the way you got it. They put 12 loads. They don't care if we get stuck. They don't care if me and my kids, at the time I had 2, I've sat out there all night long waiting for my husband to get home because I'm so damn afraid of walking home because there's huge rattlesnakes out there, huge, which I find kind of funny when all these city people run into them. But I'm afraid to run into a rattlesnake with 2 kids on my hip. They don't care about that. My husband's right. I have police reports that I could provide y'all to where sheriff department, sheriff personnel, I called them because I couldn't get a hold of my husband because he was at work. Please come rescue me and my children out of this place. It is raining. We're sitting right in the middle of a creek in our E350 van. Sheriff department comes out, gets stuck. We don't, like I told y'all earlier, I am not lying when an EMS, fire department, or police officer cannot get out there to us. I am not worried about it. I know how to protect my land. Like Andy or Andreas had said, there has been some people, when the Penders land was sold, there was 4 houses on that land. We would catch people vandalizing those homes. I know Mr. Ortiz up here at the front has people vandalizing his property. He assumes it's from the first development, which it only leads one to assume because we never had those problems out there. We never had those problems. Miss Pender's son, Nancy Pender, she's my aunt. He is a police officer, Guadalupe County Sheriff's Officer. He can tell you how many times he's had to come out there because he gets called before the 911 gets called. We did not have problems out there. The problem's already starting to bother Mr. Ortiz. What's going to happen when someone comes out there and we choose to protect our land? What's going to happen? Now, with the first phase across the street, they put a park in there. It says for ages like 3, there's an age limit on it. Any given time, you can walk by there and find teenagers smoking marijuana. I want to expose that to my children. Why? I could have kept living in San Antonio for that. Something has to be done. It takes me, I know because I tie myself every morning for the kids at school, it takes me to get from my house, which is right here, to Ingle Road. It takes me a matter of 7 minutes on the dirt road. Not sure where our entrance and exit is, like my husband had mentioned, but how long is it going to take me to get back to here? Because I'm sure they're going to do away with the end of Big John Lane from what I've seen on the other maps. I might be wrong, but it looks like they're going to do away with it. So how long is it going to take me to get up here? Then I got to go down Eckert, which is currently closed, and then take a right down 35. This is a, it's, what is it called? Okay. I agree with Mr. Schwab about the flooding. The creek, at some point, the creek down at the bottom, my family, since we've owned the land, we're the one that put the cement pad in it. Y'all can go out there and look at all the initials in the cement pad. It runs to Engle Road. And when Mr. Schwab was saying there's a hill here and there's a hill here, he's absolutely correct. There's a creek that goes through it. So the creek at the bottom of Iola's Way runs into the creek on Ingles Road. That creek on Ingles Road is a public road. It often gets closed when it rains enough because it floods. Mr. Schwab does live at the top of the hill, but his property starts going towards the bottom. So in turn, it does get flooded. I've seen it with my own eyes. The whole property gets flooded. The back of Mr. Ortiz's property gets flooded. I really don't have problems with flooding because, again, we are on one of the highest points. But where I have to drive through gets flooded. No matter if you go Iola's Way or down Big John Lane to Engle, both ways get flooded. So the flooding does need to be addressed. I'm not okay. Maybe we could think about, I don't know if this is a possibility, but one-story houses here. I clean houses. I could look out at any of my clients' houses, walk in any of their homes, look out the top story of the window and see into the next door neighbor's yard. Seriously, I bought land for a reason. Seriously, I don't want people looking over into my yard or into my property. I'm not getting rid of my horses. I am afraid for my horses. I'm afraid that kids are going to approach the horses like many kids do, and someone's going to get injured. I don't want to be held responsible for that. The cars on the roads, in the very first property that they built, there's cars parked all over the roads. It is so hilly, you can't see around those cars when you're driving. Two cars cannot go in and out of the street at the same time. You have to stop, let one pass, and then the other goes. That's another issue. Overcrowding of the street. They're compared to what's out there right now, there's not that much green space. They keep hitting on green space, green space. Right here, you've got to put green space. It's power line. They have no other choice. This is all that they're electing to put green space out of, let's see here, Nancy owns 50 to 60 acres. My aunt and uncle own 70 to 75. I know there's about 40 up here. Out of all that land, that's all the green space you're going to put in it? I thought we were supposed to be a green community. Something has to be figured out, and in the process of doing it, please put yourselves in our shoes, the people who have to live out there and deal with this. Again, I understand it's coming. I see it every day when I step on my front porch. It breaks my heart. My husband doesn't know what I'm talking about when I tell him it breaks my heart or I'm crying, but it breaks my heart. But I know it's coming. It's okay for it to be coming. But it has to be something that we can all work with, that we can all live with. And if it's not, zone our property commercial, we'll move out of there. You won't hear from us again. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan.
John Sullivan, 513 Triple Crown. I also had a few questions. This one's difficult because they are adding parkland, although it sounds like the parkland may not be as great as what we're being sold. I do agree with the green space issues. That's power lines. We already have that issue in Cypress Point. So we're getting like 2 acres of more parkland, but then they're trying to sell all those lots along Phase 1 as green space, backing up to other lots, and then they're trying to sell it in Phase 2 as green space. So the amount of lots backing the green space, that's what really threw me off from the KFW presentation. The easement between Phase 1 and Phase 2, the drainage is, maybe if they were putting a trail there to connect the back over to this park, maybe you could call that green space, but being a drainage easement like that, it's just backing to other houses, and then the houses down here at the bottom. Do you have the one with? Yeah. Or do you have the base? So, yeah, this here, that's not, you're not back in the green space, you're back in the other home. So, I don't know if there's plans for a trail there to connect to the park from the back of the neighborhood to the park. That might be a nice thing to add. Back here, I mean, that's not green space either. I do like the stub outs to the road for pedestrians to be able to walk and get to the road without going around the whole neighborhood. But this isn't green space either, because someday that's probably going to be a major road, collector road. So those homes are not back into green space. I mean, these are the only green space I see. And that's actually, I mean, that's the main entry. So other than that, I do think there probably are some water concerns with the hills. I don't see where the water's going to collect before it leaves the property. I'm wondering about that. And I'm also curious how frequently you can take from another PDD. And when you do take from another PDD, do you have to notify everyone in the original PDD about the change? And I would think if you take from the original PDD, everything in that PDD should apply to the next one. So those are my thoughts.
All right, any other comments? All right, well, go ahead.
Is it okay if I address some of the comments from the concerned residents?
I would say let's go ahead and close the public hearing, and then we'll let you go ahead and.
What is that 200-foot buffer that I see on the map all the way around? It comes into my property. What is that 200-foot buffer?
Just as a statement of fact, to respond to your question, that's a notification zone. When there's a rezoning, they're required to notify all property owners that have property that are within that 200-feet boundary.
Okay.
So it's just...
There's no limits on building or doing...
No, there's no impact on you. It's just the statutory requirements for notification of a pending rezoning case.
Okay. My second question was, I know that they said they're going to put a fence around this one portion of it. What are they on the other part of the parklands, are they putting a fence against my property too? Are they going to put a wooden fence?
I believe Mr. Warren can answer that question when we let him come back up.
Because I have a stock tank there, and I don't want kids coming across the fence and they get, drowned in my stock tank, and then I'll be liable for it. So I want to find out what kind of boundary fence they're going to put up.
Okay, then. With that, then we're going to close the public hearing at 7:31. Mr. Warren.
Thank you for giving me a second to just address some of the concerns of the residents. I'm going to try to get to closer. First, from the point of consideration on this project, we have an existing zoning that follows the boundary that I'm outlining right here. There was a lot of concern and discussion regarding the existing zoning of school site or this unit located right here. Our project actually is far off of theirs. And just as a note, there is an entitlement and zoning already in place for what is adjoining this. Our project is off of yours and does not impact what is currently in place. It's just as As far as everything that we can do to help considerations that were brought forward by the residents, I have here drainage. We're very well aware of the drainage that's out here. There's the neighbor that is at the top of the hill right here. Everything drains towards a low. We're accommodating that during platting and construction of the platting. During that process, we're taking into consideration all the city code, designing for ultimate access. Consideration as well that was brought up, we will handle this through detention as well at the time of platting, was access. We are aware of three things. One, there are two major thoroughfares planned out here by the city of Schertz. One is for Obese Road, which we've internalized and called Parkland's Way, and then Big John Road, both of which will ultimately connect from Eckerd Road to Engle. Those extensions are largely coming from private dollars at this point, as the developer has extended the first phase of Parkland's Way and will extend further sections as units come on board. But currently, how the access runs, we have Big John, which goes right along this stretch. We're buffering off of it a 20-foot green belt, but we are not limiting or obstructing that access. In fact, the individual who purchased this still has the easement that was purchased with the property. I'm sure they can talk to you about access through there in the interim, but I can't speak for them at this point. But that would make sense from this level. In the terms of Iola Way, which really follows this alignment right here, and it joins our proposed zoning case. We provided with the planning session two proposed stubs that would ultimately provide access to that existing easement. Right now, if you follow the line work, it follows this route. It's for Breezy Road. If you've ever driven down there, it's very difficult to maneuver through. And then it comes and bisects the property and goes through the major creek that was referred to, which has no storm drain existing, and then ties back. It's all dirt road, and ties back to their home site. We have proposed an extension of Parkland's Way all the way through, which brings that access, that ultimate access that accounts for stormwater and allows for unflooded access much sooner than their existing conditions. So this will be a collector road, public access. It's an abbreviated way where infrastructure comes closer to them, so we have safe and orderly conduct, travel, both for safety purposes, but also for the residents out there. You'll see there's two stubs, one here and one here, planned along Big John Way. So really in consideration of everything, we have looked and provided stubs to allow for that, for access to better serve the parcels that are out here. There are a couple things that will also be brought out here. We're extending currently, we're going to construct a lift station to provide service out here, and also sewer mains that will stub and bring facilities closer to their home site, as well as public water. Currently, there are no infrastructure within reasonable reach of theirs. As we develop towards them, it will be obviously closer and more obtainable. As far as improvements are concerned, how this property can be benefited outside of that, there has been to Eckerd Road $450,000 that has been set aside to improve Eckerd Road, and the future extension, which would come in this next phase, is approximately $1 million worth of infrastructure of a collector road, which again gets closer and actually it'll tie into Iola Way, so they won't have to bypass this basically low water dirt section. They'll have immediate access to public road, much shorter from what they currently do. So we've worked towards in consideration of all those items. I just want to make sure that they're aware that a lot of thought's been put towards it, and we're aware of both the drainage and access and the easement considerations that they brought up. actually everything I have on my notes. As far as fencing, I'm not sure exactly what they're talking about as far as fencing, but all the residential lots will have fencing along the rear of the property. This drainage low, which I'm assuming is a stock pond, there's been no discussions of what would be done there, but I'm sure the developer will be happy to discuss what can be done here. We can't restrict flow coming through here, so we'd have to make sure that we can allow for drainage to pass, not obstructed and not to rise into the waters that come through. I'm assuming that that's there is also potential to just have this open and continue what they did the zoning, but anywhere you see a residential lot, there would be a picket fence.
All right, commissioners, comments, questions? I'm sorry, sir. The public hearing is closed at this point. If you have any further questions, please talk to one of the staff members. All right, well, I guess I'll go ahead and begin then. As we discussed this morning, this was a really difficult case to consider. One of the things I did go back, I looked at the original Parklands PDD document, and one of the things that I took from it, and I cut and pasted it, and I'm going to read directly from that. The purpose of a PDD is to encourage and promote more creative, innovative, and imaginative land development that would be possible under the regulations found in a typical zoning district. The intent is to allow substantial flexibility in planning, design, and development standards in exchange for greater land values and amenities, such as enhanced parkland and open space preservation of natural resources, pedestrian-friendly environment, and deviation from the typical traffic patterns. It is this intrinsic flexibility in the form of relief from the normal zoning ordinances, design standards, land use densities, and subdivision regulations that allow for the definition of uses, densities, and standards that will permit the alternative planning associated with a PDD. And so, you know, in the previous discussions with staff, and as we've read, you know, that the idea of the PDD is to allow flexibility, creativity, innovation, and we saw that with the parklands. You know, we have 194 total acres. 48 acres of that, in general, is open space or parkland, which is about 25% of the total land area. It makes it very unique among the subdivisions and master plan communities that we have in our city. It makes it akin to something like we see with the Crossvine, with Homestead, and even with Rhine Valley. In terms of having some very unique features. Adding this to that, to me, in a large way, dilutes that. We have approximately 60 acres, and we're adding 2.6 acres of parkland. It's about 4.3% of the overall area of the project. It makes it a real challenge to look at and consider it. We see some of the elements that we see in other developments with the curvilinear streets. I think you're making some good improvements to the park in terms of the actual infrastructure there. But in general, I kind of concur with staff's assessment that it's almost as being used in this case to step around the prohibition of new R6 and R7 zoning, and that I personally feel that we can do a little bit better than this. You know, City Council just in the last couple of weeks approved a resolution for a rezoning case in San Antonio where they opposed, you know, a small lot, 45, 50, 60-foot lot type subdivision. It's in San Antonio, but it abuts, you know, the city of Schertz. And it was enough of an impact out in the area on Great Town Road that the city council felt that it would be appropriate to put in their 2 cents on that project. And it's, again, it's very difficult. But I'll let the other commissioners make a few comments and questions, and I'll come back to a few more things that I have.
So where do I start? First of all, to the residents, let me tell you, I've been there. When I was 10 years old, we moved out of the city of San Diego into a suburb, a lot like Schertz was 30 years ago when I moved here, 10,000 people. Now, I never lived on a farm. Turns out my family was the spearhead of the development. I'm one of those kids that played with an electric fence, okay? But the point there is, as much as we enjoyed the open space, we, even though we lived in a tract home, short walking distance, we hunted rabbits and we had swimming ponds and all that. Well, that little sleepy suburb that was 10,000 people in 1959 is now 75,000 people. There are homes where I shot rabbits, and there, it's inevitable. And we have learned over the years that the city has very limited authority as to what they can do. We can't stop development. All we can do is try our best to develop it in such a way to make the city a livable and enjoyable place to be. I had some concerns when I was listening to you talk about how do you access the property. Now I can look at these maps and I can see that if you look at one of the city exhibits in particular, along the bottom edge, which is Big John Lane, there's a 20-foot access easement that's being preserved. I also see the stub outs to Big John Lane. And the question would be, would those actually be accessible to the folks from Big John Lane, or do you intend to close those off until future development provides a paved connection? Okay. And then someday, I will probably not live long enough to see it because of some of the changes in the way we have streets developed. There will be a paved, as George pointed out, Big John Lane will be a 70-foot paved right-of-way through there. And that may be where the eminent domain comes from in the future. But the city has, when you go out, and I think you can find it on the city website, the thoroughfare plan is out there. Those are where the city wants to see thoroughfares and streets. It doesn't mean we're going to jump out there tomorrow and build that street because we don't have the money. Okay, those are things that'll come over the years as the developers build the houses. At the time of the original Parklands master plan, I was the fire marshal and the assistant fire chief, and that's why the comments were being made such as they are. And I still can't believe that people will pay $300,000 for a house that you access off a 2-lane cow trail. Okay, but apparently you guys are fixing that. Comment for staff. And I'm sorry, let me find it here real quick. It's part of your staff memo. And its impact of public facilities / services. The proposed rezoning request should have a minimal impact on public services such as schools, fire, police, parks, and sanitation services. 214 lots. That's what, 428? I don't know what's the average family size in planning these days. Okay, so I question the word minimal when it comes to analyzing things like that. And in deference to the developer, as a former fire protection official, I still have problems because the only access to this subdivision is off of Eckert Lane, and we are getting further and further away from Eckert Lane. When you put the whole Parklands 1 and 2 map up there, you can imagine a fire truck, because that's usually the worst case scenario, trying to get to that very last cul-de-sac in Parklands 2. Again, someday in the future, we'll have access coming the other way, but if I'm not mistaken, the property to the east between this development and Eckert is probably New Braunfels and not City of Schertz. Am I correct? So what guarantees do we have that this property is ever going to connect to Engle Road? Right? And then I don't want to say as a final comment because I'm sure I'll think of something else, but I'm a little surprised. Well, let me ask you a question first. This is not platting, correct?
Correct.
So even if this is approved, they still have to come back and plat and put in the easements and the drainage, okay, correct? Mm-hmm. All right. What I started to say was, if you look at what they call the Parklands 2 Plan Development District, 2 or 3 pages, well actually it's just 2 pages long. Number one, that's the whole PDD is 2 pages. I don't see anything in there about street design, architectural standards, fence standards. I don't see any of the normal stuff I'm used to seeing in a PDD.
These are the only changes to our standard UDC requirements that they're requesting changes.
Okay.
So everything else would conform to the current UDC.
Okay, so streets and all that, all right. My other issue with there is on their second page where they show the table 1, all the lots, even though one is 7,200, 8,200, and 9,000, they're all 60 by 120. That doesn't compute.
That's the minimum they can be, but minimum lot width could be 60 feet, and the minimum lot depth can be 120 feet, but they can have a variation to get to the SF 7200.
I don't see how you can tell me I got a 9,000 foot lot and my minimum width is 60 and my minimum depth is 120. That's 7,200, not 9,000. Okay. It just, sorry, it's not computing up here. Now, in some of the other tables where they're talking about means and medians, and okay, I can see particularly what it's the chart where they show how many of each. Where is that in the? Yeah, that table right there. Now, see, I understand where they show the lot mentions being 60 by 120 because that is the minimum. But where you're telling me that you've got a 9,000 square foot lot, you can't tell me the minimum dimensions are 60 by 120. The math is wrong. It doesn't compute. It's okay in this chart, but I don't think it's okay in the other chart. Okay? So, and I too, Mr. Chairman, when I first saw this table where that's nearly 60%. I think if I remember the math right, it's 59 point something percent of the lots are 60 by 120. So I too was wondering about, are we just trying to get around the R6? I feel a little bit better about it after having seen the developer's presentation, because he could come in and ask for, is it R2 that's 70 by 120? And you get that gridded out mess, okay? So by allowing him to do this, I think we get away from that grid. We get a little better, this certainly looks better on paper than the straight gridded. And then my concerns about the number of small lots was somewhat allayed by your color diagram where you actually identify the lots. But again, I'm a little concerned. I don't see anything on here about drainage. I don't see any retention. I don't see. Is that something we would deal with here, or is that typically reserved for plats?
With each individual unit, they would have to go through the plotting process, and the full stormwater management plan would be reviewed, and there'd be conversations between KFW and our engineering staff to discuss the drainage.
Okay, but I don't see that the developers made any plans or made any allowances here for if,
Mr. Howell, it's hard to see. It's not shown on here, but I went back to the original Parklands plan.
Mm-hmm.
There was contemplation that there would be a lot of smaller detention ponds along that open space section. What this allows for is us to do a more comprehensive pond, so it doesn't look as boxy as it would otherwise with continual structures along the way. This would contemplate a bigger pond, look kind of more natural and more in both shape and both sides.
So the drainage from this project
flows to
the north. Okay, it doesn't. It flows away up, or to make it simple for me, it flows up.
Yeah, can you pull up the map that has both the original parklands and the proposed?
I'll do my best to always have problems with yeah. The detention facilities would be along this stretch.
Mm-hmm.
The drainage patterns follow really. Cypress Point has a culvert structure that flows through and down, and there's a confluence point that happens right about here.
Okay.
The drainage comes and flows.
All right. And then again, just to reiterate my concerns for what the residents there on Big John Lane, they will continue to have, while Iola's Way may disappear as part of the development, Big John Lane will not, correct? That along the bottom edge.
No, sir. It'll stay in existence. We've buffered off to consider the right-of-way requirements for that thoroughfare and have not touched that easement.
And then it's your intent to allow them access to the subdivision from Big John Lane? Thank you.
All right, commissioners. Mr. Burrow. Mr. Greenwald.
PDD also stipulates that within each individual unit, the mean and median has to be met as well. So when we review each individual plot, if the zoning gets approved, we would review it with that to make sure that it's combined.
So the pretty picture that we saw with all the colors for the different lot sizes may or may not be what we get?
So that's what is currently in the master development plan. So with the zoning, the MDP would get approved, but if they at any time want to come in and change that MDP, they can do that process. But obviously there might be some tweaking when we start looking at the drainage and easements and all of that on the individual flat basis.
But in general, they would conform to that.
From my understanding.
But they wouldn't, the density would be the same, if that's what you're asking. They wouldn't be able to put any more homes there.
Yeah, I understand we wouldn't be able to put in more lots, but if we have a bunch of 70-foot lots that become 60-foot lots because of drainage easements, it kind of changes the picture a little bit.
I just want to bring up a point. As part of the review process, the city staff does look at that. We don't increase lots. We don't decrease open space. There are minor tweaks to account any type of consideration that might be come about during planning. But every time we've gone through this, if there's anything of substance, we always have to come back to planning and zoning and city council if there's a change to the master plan or the PDD that's substantial. So what you're looking at is very closely to what you're going to see. From this scale, it should look pretty much identical.
All right, so looking at, go ahead.
Sorry, can I add something? Bert Wellman, KFW. So to address another thing as well, with the 60-foot minimum that you're seeing through the table, what that's referring to is if we run into a constraint to have that ability to use that width, but at the same time, there's going to be a sacrifice or a concession for doing that because we're going to have to oversize another lot to meet the mean median requirement. I just wanted to point that out, is that the lot size is intended to create some flexibility, but at the same time we're not sacrificing the mean and median requirements.
So the lot size could be 9,000 square feet, and if because it's a knuckle or a cul-de-sac, you can't get the minimum width would be 60 feet, and you'd make it a longer lot so the
wider, or not, I'm sorry, wider in the back, just kind of. Right.
So, okay. I'm sorry, it still doesn't, but I understand now. Thank you.
So looking at the elevation contours, the parcel that we're looking to, or under discussion tonight, generally it appears the elevation is at a peak on the lower right-hand corner and it drains to the upper left-hand corner. As you've taken a preliminary look at your drainage, is there water that is entering the property from further upstream that crosses into your property that you're looking at, or is the borders of this potential property at the crest or at the drainage basin?
Right, it's at the crest, yes, sir.
Okay.
It's basically at the top of the hill, and everything's draining back towards the north, towards Parklands.
Okay. Yeah, this is the high point here. This is the low point over here. That section. All right, and then I guess can we pull up the slide that has the entire park? So there's that easement there at Iola's Way. How is that going to be? Is that a recorded easement? Is that going to need to be abandoned at some point, or how is that going to be dealt with?
It's a private easement, as it's been reviewed by the attorneys. Each one is independent to itself. There was a separation of, I believe it was 60-acre parcels, each having an easement, really with the intent to go to Frobisi. What the intent here is to allow access to continue through, and provide additional access through the extension of Parklands Way and the stubs that you see shown on the plan.
So then who would be the individual or entity that abandons this easement? Would it be the people that are now using it, or would it be somebody else?
It's a little bit above my pay grade, to be
Okay.
honest with you, but as I understand, actually, as attorneys have reviewed this, how it was actually conveyed was each parcel has an easement. The intent was to get all the way through, but each easement or each parcel does not have right to actually pass each parcel. So, as it's shown as Isla Way all the way through, because of the process that it was created, doesn't technically benefit everybody, including the families here. That's why this kind of solves the issue, because technically, if you were to, as I understand, of course, it's not my specialization, but as I had it explained to myself, was each individual person had the right to the access easement, but not through and across. Nothing explains the through and across. That's been an activity that has existed amongst the residents out there, but it is our intent with this plan is to help alleviate that concern, that question, to plan something that will be much closer with the public.
I'm sorry, sir. The public hearing has been closed.
But again, I think what or at least what came to my mind with the question, was that earlier I think your intent was to leave Iola's Way open during construction, but eventually, as you complete this project and build that park, that's going to have to go away.
So that's our preference, and they've worked on that.
I think that then the question was, at what point does that become abandoned, or I did some reading, and it's been a long time ago, and we're seeing some issues, I believe, up in northwestern Bexar County or in Kerr County with the whole access easement battle. There are different kinds of access easements. Believe it or not, you can give me an access easement, but it gives you the right to gate it off and tell me I can't come across it. I think I understand what the explanation was. The way the easements were done, they're there, but that easement is only on this property. It gives the gentleman there no legal right to cross it. It doesn't make any sense, but sometimes lawyers don't make any sense. See.
Yeah.
And I told you I was going to think of another question. It's nice that you're making the park bigger, but I thought parks didn't want any more park space because they can't take care of what they've got today. Have they seen this?
So Lauren Shrum, the Parks Director, has looked at it and felt that the additional parkland, along with the multiple amenities that they're proposing, would benefit. But I'm more than happy.
Okay. No, that's fine. That's a good answer. Thanks.
So, has there been, you mentioned the possible swimming pool facility. Has that been committed to, or is that just an idea?
That has been committed to, in the location not here shown, but in
Right.
the marker.
Right. And other question, do you know if Comal ISD is committed to the school site or not?
We're still reserving that site for them. They're looking, but they've changed in past years. They've changed staff and have both committed interest and then pulled back. But at this point, we have nothing solid from them. As a backdrop, just to note, on the original parklands, 70-foot by 120 is contemplated.
Yeah, you have the option to convert that to houses, yes. Yeah, I'm aware of that. All right. Anybody have anything else? All right. Well, if we have no further comments or questions, Chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we recommend to City Council the approval of the case ZC 2018-001 Parklands 2 subdivision zoning request as presented.
All right, I have a motion for approval. I have a second.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Greenwald. Any other comments or questions? All right, then we'll call for a vote.
No.
No. No.
Aye.
No. 1 aye, 4 nays. Motion fails. All right, next item on the agenda, item 5A, PC 2018-051. Consider and act upon a request for approval of a preliminary plat for the Woodland Oaks Business Park North subdivision, an approximate 1.5-acre tract of land, generally located at the intersection of Schertz Parkway and Woodland Oaks Drive, Guadalupe County, Texas.
May I ask a question first before we proceed? The motion that was defeated was to recommend approval the rezoning, correct?
Correct.
And that failed.
Correct.
So what we don't have a motion, in my mind, we have no motion to send it to City Council for their action. We made the motion was made to recommend approval to City Council. That failed. So do we not need then something, or does it just die here?
Mr. Attorney, this is the first time I've had this since I've been up here.
Yeah, no, it goes to the council with recommendation of denial.
So it's just automatically because we defeated the recommendation, it'll go as a recommendation. Yes? Okay, I just wanted to make sure it was going to move on.
Yeah, and that's what I was assuming, but yeah,
Thank you.
It's good that you asked the question. I appreciate that. All right, item 5A.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm going to recuse myself. My property abuts this property in discussion, so I'll recuse myself.
Is your property involved with 5A or 5B? It's two different cases.
5B is adjacent. 5A is probably within the 200-foot.
So, Mr. Attorney?
We've already had this conversation, yes. If you're within the 200-foot radius.
Okay. Leaves us 4. We still have a quorum.
Discussing the motion as well, we were all thrown a little off. So the property is shown here in green. This is Woodland Oaks and Schertz Parkway. So this is the Woodland Oaks Business Park North preliminary plat. It's approximately 1.5 acres, and they are trying to preliminary plat this into one commercial lot. Which looks like this. So you can see here again Woodland Oaks Drive and Schertz Parkway, and this is lot 1. The property is currently zoned general business. It does have frontage onto Woodland Oaks Drive, and then just as a note, due to the roadway classification of Schertz Parkway and the adjacent intersection, access from the subject property onto Schertz Parkway is going to not be permitted. So through our access management guidelines, no access will be given here, but they will be able to have an access point off of Woodland Oaks Drive. The property is served by the City of Schertz Water, CCMA, GVC, AT&T, Spectrum, and CenterPoint Energy. The subject property is located adjacent to Woodland Oaks Drive, and no right-of-way dedication is being proposed there. However, an additional 0.0226 of an acre is being dedicated adjacent to Schertz Parkway. The preliminary plat is consistent with applicable requirements, ordinances, and regulations for the property, and staff is recommending approval.
All right, commissioners, comments, questions?
So once again, this is just zoning. Plating will come later.
This is
the plat.
This is the plat.
Okay. So I'm sorry. Where is that retaining wall that we just spent a bunch of money? Isn't that right along the edge of this property?
From my understanding, yes.
And the only reason I asked that question is if I heard you right, there's no access. There'll be no access off Schertz Parkway?
There will not be.
So the only access is off Woodland Oaks?
Yes.
And if I'm not mistaken,
I'm not 100% sure.
well, I can't either, given, looking at the, I know it's along that lot, but it seems to me it comes back up here. But, okay.
But it would be when the property comes in for the site
plan.
We would review that. Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
There's only going to be one access to the property off of Woodland Oaks?
That has been my understanding so far. However, our engineering department will review the site layout to see where that access would be allowed with the site plan. But for sure, there will be no access onto Schertz Parkway from this property.
It's going to put it off. Okay.
Yeah, I'm having difficulty. What's that dimension along? What's the frontage along Schertz Parkway? Can you read that number? I guess if I can find it on my iPad, I can probably bring it.
Looks like 217 feet.
217.42 feet.
Okay. And they don't want to allow access off Schertz Parkway. Why?
Due to the closeness of the intersection, has been my understanding from our engineering department that we
yet,
would not allow.
Down on my corner at Savannah Drive, where we just put that medical office building, he's got a driveway within 75 feet of the intersection.
I can tell you that they are aware of this. We've had meetings with them previously. They have known from the beginning of the platting that they would not have access there.
No, this is city-owned road. It's not TxDOT.
TxDOT did not review this, does not have to review it since it is a city street.
All right, any further comments or questions?
No, sir. Again, it comes down to site plan issues, which we have no control over. So with that stone thrown, I'll make a motion that we approve this plat.
Excuse me. I have a motion approved by Commissioner Outlaw. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, second by Mr. Greenwald. Comments, questions? All right, call for a vote.
Aye. Nay.
Aye.
Aye. Sorry, Mr. Ray? Nay? All right, so that's 3 ayes, 1 nay. Does not meet the majority requirement, so motion fails.
So if I can just ask a clarification question. So plats, when we bring them forward, they're administrative. This plat has met all of our city requirements. So can you please state for the record why you made your decision?
Because of the fact that there's only one access point, and that's on Woodland Oaks Drive. And I happen to know that that's a lot of traffic coming off of Schertz Parkway, cutting through that housing area to get over to the other side. And you also have a stop sign that backs traffic up right there in that same location.
So it's strictly because there is no access onto Schertz Parkway.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, who made the second? Who was the second on the motion?
Mr. Greenwald. All right, and next item on the agenda, 5B, PC 2018-052. We've already concluded the item on it, so. Mr. Attorney?
Yeah, well, it's not posted for a public hearing, and you didn't speak in citizen comments.
Okay, please proceed.
The next plot is for Woodland Oaks Business Park South. To get your bearings, this is Woodland Oaks, this is Schertz Parkway. The subject property here is outlined in green. They are proposing to preliminary plat the approximately 6 acres of land into 3 commercial lots. Lot 2 being 3.322 acres, Lot 3 being 1.23 acres, and Lot 4 being 1.295 acres. So it's a little, it's on multiple sheets. So this is a portion of Lot 2, and then you can see the last little portion of Lot 2 is here, Lot 3 and Lot 4. So this property, Lot 2, does have access onto Woodland Oaks Drive, and then there will be one access point granted off of Schertz Parkway for these 3 lots with a 25-foot shared access easement going across the lots along with a cross lot this way as well. So there is a 25-foot access easement here and a 25-foot cross-lot access easement between each individual lots. So they will all have access, essentially, from Woodland Oaks and from Schertz Parkway. The preliminary plat is consistent with all applicable requirements, ordinances, and regulations for the property, and staff is making a recommendation of approval.
All right, commissioners, comments, questions?
Do we know where the access point is off of Woodland Oaks?
Off of Woodland Oaks?
Woodland Oaks Drive.
Not at this time. From my understanding, the engineers may. We haven't reviewed the site plan, which is when that would final be determined. So there is this 25-foot access easement that could shift a little with the final plot, which I'm.
Because there's an island there that it splits Woodland Oaks Drive just before it gets to Schertz.
Our engineering department would review that as part of the access management review process.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve PC 2018-052, preliminary plat for Woodland Oaks Business Park.
All right, have a motion to approve by Mr. Outlaw. A second?
Aye.
All right, second by Mr. Greenwald. Comments, questions? Call for a vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. 4 ayes, no nays, motion carries.
And, may I make a comment here, Mr. Chairman?
Please.
On the earlier issue, you know, when we're down to only 4 members and any action requires 4 positive votes, we're missing 2 commissioners plus our alternate tonight, and that was I thought, the whole point of having an alternate.
Yeah. And unfortunately, schedules get in the way sometimes. All right. Item 6 on the agenda, 6A, request by commissioners to place items on a future planning and zoning agenda. Anybody? All right. 6B, announcements by commissioners.
Excuse me. Pardon me, I'm a little slow tonight. Yes, I do have. What I would like to do is there something I would like to hear, but I don't want to burden the rest of. But let me throw it out there and see what the rest of the commissioners think. Based on what I heard at council meeting last night, and some of the comments that were made by the property owners, I would be interested in a workshop with both a briefing and discussion with staff on the planning process, particularly focusing on what happens before things get to us. What authority does staff have to approve and disapprove things? You know, rather than bring them to P&Z for approval or disapproval. You know, it was made. And again, I'm just acting on what was said last night. I don't know how much of it was true. People bring projects in, and staff disapproves them without them ever being seen by us. And so I'd just like a little better understanding of the process before things get to us, and what authorities have been delegated to staff for approval and disapproval. So. If the rest of you folks would be interested in hearing that, I think it would be a good agenda topic. Otherwise, I can sit down with staff.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask Glenn a question? Can you give an example?
Well, one in particular was a piece of property out on 1518. Supposedly, they came to the city with an apartment complex project, and they were told it doesn't fit. And again, excuse me if I'm not using the right terminology, but because it didn't fit with the comprehensive land plan or the land use plan or what we had ideas for, staff disapproved it. And I believe there were 1 or 2 examples of projects that were received letters of denial or no, you can't do that, just based on that they got from staff. And again, that may be the way it works, but I would just like to understand that.
And so
am I making sense?
Let me touch on that. And if you're amenable, Mr. Outlaw, one of the things that I've been talking with staff about is that we're going to do a workshop, hopefully in the very near future, about recommendations and ideas on things that need to be changed in the UDC I know there's some citizens that also want to come and comment on that. I think your request kind of dovetails nicely into that, and I think we can make that a little bit more all-encompassing.
Okay, yeah.
One of the things that the way I heard from talking up here last night, that individual was wanting to build something that was in the clear zone. That's automatically not approved.
Well, we're kind of getting on to items that we probably shouldn't be talking about. I see the attorney getting ready to push the microphone button there.
Well, yeah, I want to actually, when y'all are done with your announcements, I would like the chair to entertain a motion to reconsider PC 2018-051, because I really need to address the commission on this.
Okay.
You can reconsider an item at the same meeting or the meeting, or at the very next meeting upon a motion by the person who made the original motion to reconsider.
But no, Mr. Chairman, again, I'm just looking for, and I agree, if we could roll that kind of thing into one.
Okay.
So, and it may be, again, that's the way things are set up to work. I'd just like to understand it.
Good. All right, and we'll do announcements by staff, and then we'll open the floor for a motion for reconsideration.
Two new site plans that we've received since the last P&Z meeting. The first one is for Lot 22 of the Windy Meadow subdivision. So to get your bearings, this is Windy Meadows Drive, and these two lots are going to be very similar. So we received two site plans, one for Lot 22, one for Lot 23. They're basically mirror images. One building is slightly larger. So Lot 22 is this lot here. It's 8,050 square foot office warehouse. And then Lot 23, like I said, almost mirror image is this lot here, 8,085 square feet office warehouse.
All right, and then that completes the announcements by city staff. And then based on the recommendation of our attorney, he suggested that we look at a motion to reconsider item PC 2018-051. So, gentlemen, if I could get a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the commission reconsider item 5A, PC 2018-051.
All right, and can I get a second?
Second.
A second by Mr. Greenwald. All right, call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. 4 ayes, no nays. Motion passes. Mr.
Chairman,
Santee, please.
If I could, I want to point out a couple of things to the commission. One of the first is in the local government code, section 212.005, approval by municipality required. It states that the municipal authority responsible for approving plats must approve a plat or replat that is required to be prepared under this subchapter and that satisfies all applicable regulations. And in 212.010, the standards for approval, it says the municipal authority responsible for approval of plats shall approve a plat if it conforms to the general plan of the municipality and its current and future streets, alleys, parks, playgrounds, and public utilities facilities, and it conforms to the general plan for the extension of the municipality and its roads, streets, and public highways, and it goes on from there. My point is that it says you must and you shall if it meets the requirements. Staff has presented this plat to you and stated to this commission that it does comply with all of the subdivision regulations. So you must or shall. If you do not, then it could be considered an abuse of your discretion. Just wanted to point that out in case you wanted to take any further action on the plat.
And so we have, so I certainly understand Commissioner's raised concern about Schertz Parkway access for this property, but given the advice of the attorney, I think we need to reconsider that.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve PC 2018-051.
All right, motion approved by Commissioner Outlaw.
Second.
Second by Mr. Greenwald. Any other comments or questions? All right, and again, I just reiterate that, you know, the what the attorney said, is that, you know, if we comply with the subdivision requirements, that we shall and that we must. And with that, I'll call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion, 4 ayes, no nays, motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, does anybody else have any other business to bring forward? And seeing none, meeting is adjourned at 8:28.